The most infuriating part is this. I can diet harder than everyone in the room and still be the only one who does not change. I can skip birthday cake while others eat without thinking. I can log food, hit protein, count calories, measure meals, drink water, do cardio with my knees screaming, and still my body behaves like I did nothing. That is the kind of fight that people who lose weight easily will never understand. When their body senses effort, it cooperates. When mind senses effort, it resists on purpose. Almost like it enjoys proving that discipline means nothing inside this biology. I remember cutting food so aggressively that my life stopped feeling like a life. I was acting like someone in preparation for a medical exam, not a normal human being. Grocery trips turned into military missions. Social events became traps. Restaurants were anxieties, not pleasure. And even with that level of restriction, the mirror barely changed. The scale barely moved. It is not that I was doing less. It is that I was doing more with less to show. That is the part that eats your head from the inside. You start tightening the rules thinking maybe the issue is softness. So you go harder, you reduce portions even more, you layer cardio on top of cardio. You push yourself on days when your chest is tight and your legs feel like lead. You drink bitter coffee to suppress hunger and go to bed early to avoid eating. You become a prisoner of your own protocol. And still, the body delivers crumbs. This is where the mental fracture begins, because the human brain is not designed to tolerate effort without reward for long periods of time. The worst hit is not physical, it is what this does to your identity. When you live inside a body that refuses to respond, you start assuming it is your character that is defective. When the default narrative in the world is that weight loss is just about willpower, and you have willpower without results, then the only place left to blame is yourself. That is how shame gets installed. Not because you are weak, but because your body makes you look weak in public despite working harder in private. People see a heavy body and assume you are careless. They do not see the skipped celebrations, the quiet refusals, the walks done in pain, the hunger endured in silence, the decisions nobody applauds because the outcome is invisible. They only see the lack of visible change and attach it to a lack of effort. Living in a body like this means living under permanent suspicion, as if your biology is lying about your effort. There is no bigger insult than that. What makes this even more vicious is the comparison loop. You watch people who are not even trying, who still eat bread at dinner, who still go to brunch, who still snack late at night, and they lose weight faster than you do with full discipline. Their biology is forgiving. Yours is punitive. They break rules and still get results. You follow rules and get nothing. That contrast rewires your head in ways that only someone with this body type can understand. And before I even knew the word for it, I could feel it. I could feel that I was not just bad at dieting. I was built in a way that punishes attempts to change. I could see patterns repeating. Same effort, same wall, same rebound. You do not need the terminology to sense the trap. Your body tells you that you belong to the group that gets the slowest return on the highest effort. Even before I learned the name for this category, I was already living inside its rules without consent. That is why it sucks. Not the hunger, not the cardio, not the routine. It is the constant message from your own biology that effort does not matter here. When you live inside a stubborn body like this, you are not fighting habits, you are fighting architecture. And nothing corrodes a person faster than waking up every day inside a body that punishes you when you try to fix it. The cycle always ends the same way. You push until your body is starving and your brain is tired, and eventually you break, because no nervous system survives effort without reward forever. You eat more one day, then another, then you tell yourself you'll restart on Monday. The moment the food comes back, the body rebounds with speed. Everything you lost in weeks comes back in days, sometimes even more than before, and then the shame returns, heavier than the weight itself. The worst part is what happens in your head after the rebound. You do not think the method failed. You think you're the one that failed. You do not think the system is mismatched to your biology. You think your character is defective. The world looks at the regain and labels it as proof you never had discipline. But deep down, you had more discipline than most people will ever endure. The problem is that your body treats discipline like background noise. That reality breaks something inside you over time. So you restart again because you do not want to give up on yourself. You cut more foods, tighten the rules again, remove the little pleasures that made life tolerable. You go back to eating mechanically, training with exhaustion, treating every bite like a negotiation. You operate like someone under alert, not someone living. And still the results come in tiny pieces. Meanwhile, other people live on autopilot, eat what they want most of the week, fix things for 3 days and their body immediately responds. Their biology forgives. Yours does not. At some point, you begin to notice a pattern too consistent to be random. Same sacrifice, same wall, same rebound. You are not failing in different ways. You are failing in the exact same way every time. That is the first sign that you are not just someone who diets badly. You are someone whose body is built for a different rulebook. That is when the concept of an endomorph finally stops sounding like a label and starts sounding like the only logical explanation. It does not feel like an excuse. It feels like the missing link that explains why you live inside a body that stores aggressively and releases reluctantly. It explains why your metabolism stalls faster than others, why hunger spikes harder when you cut calories, why fatigue hits earlier, why a single break pushes you backward further than it should. Realizing you are an endomorph does not reduce the pain. It just explains why the pain always had the same shape. What hurts is thinking about how many years you blamed yourself when the rules simply were not built for this kind of body. You are taught that effort equals results. But for people like us, effort only equals results when the approach is designed around an endomorph biology from the start. Without that alignment, you are just slowly destroying your relationship with food, with your body, and with your identity, thinking you are the problem. There's a psychological cost to living in a body that makes you look like you never tried, even when you did. There is a cost to waking up every day wondering if you will ever escape this loop or spend your entire life fighting uphill just to land in place. That quiet exhaustion is what people on the outside never see. They only see the surface. They see the body but not the war you're fighting. At some point, the pattern became undeniable. I was doing everything that people claim is the definition of discipline. I was the person buying everything zero. Diet soda, fat-free milk, artificial sweeteners instead of sugar. I was not drinking alcohol. I cut fried food completely. I was training. I was doing cardio. I was doing everything that the world swears is enough. And I was still obese. The only mistake I made was existing in a body that punishes a single weekend slip as if I had undone a year of work. That is when it hit me that the problem was never discipline. If lack of discipline were the reason, I would have never sustained the amount of restriction I sustained. The truth is brutal. When you live inside an endomorph body, you can live on fat-free yogurt, black coffee, and cardio sessions and still get treated like you never tried. Simply because the method you are using was not made for your biology in the first place. Looking back, what makes me angry is not the weight I carried. It is the years wasted believing it was my fault. I was living like someone in punishment mode while other people lived normally and still lost weight faster. They had margin for error. I never did. They could break rules and stay lean. I could follow rules and stay stuck. That is what it means to be an endomorph in the real world, not in theory. Once I understood that the issue was the mismatch between method and biology, everything changed. Not because the body suddenly became easy, but because I finally stopped trying to fight it with tools built for someone else's genetics. There is no version of this where an endomorph wins using the same strategies that work for bodies that drop fat with little effort. It does not matter how hard you try if you are trying the wrong thing. And this is the part where people like us only have two options. You either keep replaying the same cycle, strict eating tiny results, mental collapse, rebound, or you switch to a method that is engineered around an endomorph body from the start. There is no third path. Biology does not care about motivation or intention. It only responds to strategy that matches its design. That is why I built my guide specifically for people who live in this body type and are tired of being treated like they are the problem. If you recognize yourself in any part of this story, then you already know what happens when you keep trying the generic approach again. The only way it stops is when the approach finally aligns with the endomorph body you live in. My guide is in the description, and inside it I also teach a simple way to identify your body type fast, so you finally know what rules apply to you instead of guessing and blaming yourself forever.